Right. Welcome to Little Steps to Epic Month. I'm chatting with Lesley Waldron. Lesley, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you do?
Hello, hello. Thank you very much for having me, lovely Emily. I'm an integrative women's health coach. I work with women going through the peri to postmenopause transition to support them to feel wildly well. So well supported, well nourished, well connected, and to feel physically and mentally strong. What does that actually mean? So I, like Emily, I come from a background as a personal trainer, and then I've also gone through an education as a women's health coach. And so I tend to use coaching methodologies. The woman I work with leads the way, and which is partly why I love this month's topic about those little steps to epic, because actually that's how I work with my clients, is that they take one step at a time and we agree between us what those steps are, and generally over the course of 3 or 4 months change and support, changing their perimenopause symptoms, changing their lifestyle and approach and sense of balance is pretty epic. And I run group workshops on intro to the perimenopause. I have a really positive approach. I think that the more that we understand about our bodies, the more that we can connect in with what's right for us in terms of supporting ourselves, whether that's HRT, whether that's nutrition, whether that's exercise, that kind of thing. And I still teach some exercise classes that are purely for women in this transition phase too. So that's me.
Awesome. So, little steps to epic. What sort of little things? What I mean, as you've just said, you work with each client based on what's right for her.
Mm.
But what sort of things come up?
So I can remember, I was thinking about a client that I worked with this time last year, actually, and how one of the things that thank you for that wonderful, wonderful demonstration there.
Oh,
But
no,
one of
no
the
one saw
things,
me. I was drinking some water.
oh, you were just having a glass of water. So one of the things that made the biggest difference to her was drinking more water. Now, she had issues with her pelvic floor, and through our time, I got her to go and see a women's health physio, which helped with that level of recovery. But because of the issues with her pelvic floor, it stopped her exercising and it stopped her drinking very much water, which then meant that she was exhausted in the afternoons and that she wasn't sleeping terribly well as well. I didn't want to drink water at night because she didn't want to drink water at night. And she was still getting up quite a few times during the night to go to the loo. But getting her to drink a little bit more water. So rather than a big cup like this, she'd have regular, kind of small, room temperature cups of water through the day, meant that actually she slept better, her energy levels were better, her digestion was better. And because she was better hydrated, all of her tissues were better hydrated. Actually, she wasn't getting up so many times to go to the toilet in the night. So tiny step, drinking a bit more water during the day helped her sleep, helped her move more, helped her pelvic floor, helped her mood, helped her work. It was, that's the kind of tiny step I'm talking about, and the epic results that we can have from that.
Absolutely. I think you've absolutely hit the nail on the head with what happens for so many women is they think, oh, because I might have a leak,
yeah,
I can't drink any water.
Yeah.
Because if I'm completely dry, then that's better. There's nothing to leak, which I completely understand the logic.
It logically makes sense, yeah.
Unfortunately, our bodies need water.
Yeah, to function well.
Yeah.
And often if we are dehydrated, it slows our digestion down, and then that can cause issues with constipation, and then with putting more strain on the pelvic floor when we're going to the toilet, and then that then exacerbates other issues. It can also mean that there's a little bit less space for our bladder, and that can cause pressure on our pelvic floor. So a tiny step of drinking more water can make a huge difference. And so that's one thing. Someone else I'm working with, tiny step, was just helping her to think a little bit about getting more fruit and veg into her diet. So it's really just such a busy life that it felt really hard to cook. And she felt like she'd lost confidence in her cooking because life was so busy, and she was trying to keep her kids happy, trying to keep her partner happy. It felt like everybody had different tastes. And so with her, it was about spending half an hour to an hour at the beginning of over the weekend planning meals. And that was the other thing, she didn't drive, so she kind of either would she get an online shop, and that would quite often be lots of frozen things because she felt like because she couldn't drive, she couldn't have fresh things, etc. So we just went through a process of just planning meals on a Sunday, and sitting down, she would sit down with a few recipe books, and she bought herself a couple of new recipe books, and I was like, it doesn't have to be every day, it's okay to go to the freezer, a couple of times a week, whenever it suits you, but just plan out some meals and work out variety of veg that you could get in there. Find something that sounds like it's really delicious. Maybe get the children involved in planning with you, and that might sound like a big step, and some of that is, but that we started with one meal and one recipe book, and we moved towards better planning. So one meal, and maybe it would be a meal where you make enough of it that you freeze half of it. That was the other thing. So, and it was amazing how it gave her confidence in the kitchen. She started enjoying food a little bit more. Her kids got more involved in the cooking, and it took time, but the little steps, it was step by step. So new cookbook, one recipe, planning time, couple of recipes, and then she built up a bank of, by the end of the 3 months we were working together, she had a bank of about perhaps 30 recipes that she could just put in a plan and use.
But also, just going back to step one of that, where she was relying on freezer meals and so on, it's so easy to have frozen veg in the freezer. So you might go for the cottage pie that's in the freezer, that's pre-made, whatever. But if you've also got some frozen broccoli and some frozen carrots in there, you've immediately added
veg.
You don't have to be buying fresh veg for it to be good, do you?
And actually, we spoke about that quite a bit, because actually some veg is fresher and has got more nutrients in it if it's frozen, because it's frozen so soon after it's picked. Whereas you buy something from a supermarket, and particularly if you're getting it delivered, you don't know how long it's been hanging around. So that's where, so we started with variety of veg in the freezer. So rather than it only being peas, it was peas, green beans, broccoli, cauliflower. Cauliflower is fantastic because you put it into lots of things and it just disappears. So you can put it in with your mashed potato and you've automatically got a little bit more veg in your meal, and that kind of thing. Cauliflower rice, I've never really got that, but I've never really got that, no. But I have actually made cauliflower pizza, and that was okay. As long as you didn't think about it as pizza, more as a cauliflower and tomato and cheese pie.
But another thing I always have in the freezer is frozen stir-fry veg.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah, because then depending on what I want with it, I will just top up some chorizo maybe, because then it gives a bit of a zing. But basically, bung it into the pan, add some ready noodles, add a load of soy sauce and some lime juice.
Sorted. Yeah. And we can all think of, really simple. So frozen veg is a great way to start of getting more veg into your diet. And a little bit of meal planning, or getting inspiration, or swapping recipes with a friend. But it doesn't have to be like a new year, we can suddenly feel like we've got to make massive changes or go vegan or whatever. But actually, I think the message would be so much healthier for all of us. It was like, you don't need to change all your meals. Maybe just try one or two a month and see what happens. 1 or 2 new recipes a month. 1 or 2 new vegetables a month. I get a veg box delivered, but I enjoy cooking, and I have the time to do it. Like I make it a priority. So apart from at some point in November and December when I've really lost interest, so and nobody wants to eat anything apart from mince pies, but so I naturally get variety, and variety is really good for our gut health. And one of the simplest things, there are 2 simple things we can do for our gut health, is 1, drink more water, and 2, more vegetables. And so that's a really simple, simple step that can make an epic change.
Yeah. Awesome. I'm going to add in one other thing, which I know is one of our shared preferred topics, but a way to see if these little changes are increasing your epic, because sometimes it can be difficult to get the handle on it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Tracking.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so by tracking it, you think, oh, so that day I had 8 little glasses of water, whatever, insert number here. And the next day, suddenly I'm noticing that I feel much better. And
so the client who had the pelvic floor issues also had migraines, and by the end of the 3 months, those migraines were far fewer as well, because she was better hydrated.
Yeah.
And we'd also, we layered on hydration, movement, food, and sleep, in that order. And so the migraines were also so much better, which meant less painkillers, less time lying down in bed.
Which is all just
I got her to track her. So tracking can be a number of things. So it could just be you pick up your notebook or your diary and you just write it down. And there are all kinds of apps. I'd steer you clear of MyFitnessPal, but there are all kinds of apps out there. But like just a little tick, or even you could just put a tick on your calendar or diary every time you have a little glass of water, and then see if that makes a difference to how you're doing that. Thank you. I've just had a cup of herbal tea delivered. That's
very nice.
Also somebody. So tracking and layering those things on top of each other can be really, really helpful, noticing the change. And you can track that with your menstrual cycle as well. So again, one of the things that I often am working with my clients on, and I don't know if you find the same, Emily, is on PMS and mood, and the low mood prior to this, low mood, anxiety and anger towards the end of their cycle. And so I always get them tracking, partly so they can see when the particular low day is, but also because blood sugar can be a hugely helpful factor in this, keeping stable blood sugar, so that we can see if what the changes are that we're implementing, how they're having an impact. So just making a note of any change you make. And some of the things with the January urge to change everything is that it's impossible to know what's made a difference.
Absolutely. But also the feedback I get about tracking is that often women in perimenopause feel as though everything's awful. Yeah. Because everything's different and it's all changing, and there are some really horrible symptoms. And I'm not at all discounting that, because I know. Actually, when you track every day and you track things that are relevant to you, you start to see that you have a lot of good days.
Yeah.
But I think our brains automatically go to, oh no, everything's shit.
Yeah.
Because that 2 days of the month was awful, therefore I must feel awful all the time. Yeah. And I've had this feedback so many times from people who've just started to track, just thinking, well, there's no skin off my nose, I'll just bung some things into an app. And after a couple of months, they go, oh, I only actually feel really bad on X number of days a month. And actually the rest of the time I feel fine. But I'd got so fixated on those bad days. I thought they were all the time. And I think that can be one of the beauties of tracking, and can be a tiny step. It's literally downloading an app, and every day for about 20 seconds going into the app and just adding whatever. So personally, the metrics that I cover are mood, hours slept, energy levels, and then period related. That's all I track, because those are because I know from having tracked for a long time that those are the only I can read into that what I need to.
What you need. That gives you enough of an indicator of what your body needs. Absolutely.
But a lot of apps you can track endless things, and so you could start with tracking almost too much.
And that can feel overwhelming in itself, can't it?
So you can start small, just tracking mood and period, or you can start a bit bigger and track the symptoms that are impacting you, what it feels like all the time. And actually that is another little change, I think, that can
Yeah, I think that's, I mean, I think it would be definitely one of those things where if we all were taught to track our cycles, we would be really powerful women and we'd know ourselves better.
Probably
and then
why we're not taught to.
Yes, but also if within a medical education doctors were taught to understand that women feel different at different points of their cycle. Imagine if you went to the GP about your symptoms or about anything, your mood, whatever, and the GP said, what stage, in a sympathetic, empathetic way,
yes.
What stage of your cycle are you in now? Because that will help them understand, like, if your mood is particularly low and you are on day 22, 23, 24, 25, you know, whatever, late luteal phase of your cycle, he'll say, okay, how did you feel last week? How did you feel a month ago? Is this something that's every day? Like, we'd be better able to, and the same happens with pain as well, doesn't it? With migraines and with pain. My daughter has started to have really piercing headaches, but she's not yet menstruating, so I'm just keeping track of it because I'm like, there's an entirely likely this has got a hormonal element to it.
Yeah.
But if I track it, then it gives me power and it gives her power back over it, and it's not quite so scary.
I have a friend who, to my knowledge, doesn't track, but it's always cyclical. I will get a message from her every now and then going, oh my god, the world is ending, everything's terrible, blah blah blah. I'm like, okay, right, I'm listening, I'm here, kind of thing. And then about 2 days later I'll get the message going, period started.
Funny that.
Yeah. I didn't want to say it, but saw that coming. But it's only from that understanding the tracking and spotting those little things. And it's, as you say about going to the doctor, if you certainly in perimenopause, if we can show that stuff is happening cyclically, we're helping the doctor to help us. Because if anxiety is a constant throughout, it's potentially a different issue that needs addressing than if anxiety is worse at certain times in the cycle.
Absolutely, and insomnia is the same. So both of which kind of have a real, like, progesterone has a massive impact on our sleep and on our anxiety levels, and so I can feel super anxious the week before my period, particularly if I've run out of magnesium, and super anxious and super low, and I can wake up in the night, and that's the only time I'll have hot flushes. But usually for me, I use that as an indicator that actually some of my self-care hasn't been as on it as it would be normally. So, you know, but equally, if those amplify, that means I can go to the doctor and go, do you know what? I think that I might need some hormone support here, because this is becoming so that there is, you know, a couple of weeks a month where it's just unsustainable, my mood, sleep, energy issues. So it's powerful tracking.
And it is, I think it's kind of almost the ultimate little step to epic, because you can track how much hydration you're having, you can track how many veggies you're having, so all of those other things can help to build up the bigger picture.
Definitely. Yes. So if we said and then the things that you could track could be all of those other pillars of good health, particularly good health in perimenopause: movement, hydration, nutrition, stress management, sleep. And you could track those. I mean, I have a smartwatch, a Garmin, and I will use that to look at my sleep and my stress levels and my activity levels, and you can kind of see that alongside the apps that I use to track my cycle. You can kind of tally all of those things together.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's a good place to start. So I guess the question for the audience really would be, it's like, what would be your first small step to epic? Which might be, well, I'm going to track, and what am I going to track? Because that could be how you find the action that you want to take and you want to focus on, couldn't it?
Absolutely, as opposed to thinking that it needs to be some external thing of, I must do dry January or I must do whatever. But actually let your body lead that, and then your body will tell you what little steps it needs.
And a reminder to all of us that January is still in the middle of winter, and that actually our biology doesn't do very well if we restrict in the winter, if we if we cut out too much in the winter, because we're in kind of energy storing mode, and we don't want to slip into starvation mode where our bodies then will go into a bit of a panic mode, and it adds to our stress levels. So it's kind of, if you're wanting to kind of change up your diet and make some big changes, then it's March really where it's worth kind of thinking about changing recipes. So do the research in January and February.
Yeah.
Make it good.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you, Lesley.
Thank you very much. It's always lovely to speak to you. Thank you for having me, Emily.